After being professional organizers for 12 years, you would think by now we wouldn't get as excited as we used to by the process of decluttering and organizing. But that couldn't be further from the truth. And in this podcast, we'll tell you why.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're a brand new listener, thanks for being here, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our weekly podcast. And if you've been listening in for a while, thank you so much for being here. Now, it's almost Christmas, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that we have dressed up for the occasion. So we're going to hopefully talk about some serious things, but with like a whole Christmas outfit and a Christmas background, it might be difficult to stay a little bit serious, Leslie.
I think it's fair to say, I think I will share with our listeners that this is our second take of the podcast because the first one did not go well because as well as our Christmas jumpers, this is my Christmas jumper. Anybody who's on YouTube who can't see it is a penguin. Ingrid's got her Christmas blouse, and we also had Christmas backgrounds and Christmas hats. And it was becoming very, very difficult to really take ourselves seriously. So we've lost the hat, haven't we? We've still got the backgrounds and the jumpers. The fact that it's absolutely roasting hot in here and I'm like about to collapse under the heat of the jumper is also not relevant. But we're going to try our best. We wanted today to be a little bit light-hearted but serious, didn't we? We know that no one's got time for a huge decluttering project a week before Christmas. And so we just thought, let's have a little chat, Ingrid, didn't we, about what we love about the decluttering and organising process. What is it that makes us keep coming back for more year after year after year, talking about it, loving it, and sharing our expertise with people? That is what today is all about.
You know what? It is just such a passion. And, besides doing the podcast and having the Facebook group and having our lovely membership and still occasionally working with clients, I read books about decluttering. I listen to other podcasts. I read blogs. I'm like immersed in it. It's just so much my passion and I love it so much. And I'm so delighted that it still excites me and I get so much enjoyment out of it. And I think it's mainly because we see just magic happen in front of our eyes, don't we? And we know this is not about putting something in a bin bag. It's about these habits, these emotions, these things that change within our clients, within our members, the journeys they go on, the incredible light bulbs and insights that people get. And I think that is just all together. It's just why we still, I think I speak for both of us here, we still just adore it, don't we?
We do. And I think it's a massive, massive privilege to be part of that as well. And we don't take that lightly as well, because even though we're here with ideas, it's you guys who are doing all the work at home, isn't it? You're the ones that are taking what we advise you to do or we share with you and running with it. And you're the ones getting the real results. And you're the ones who are going through those changes in mindset, because decluttering is not an easy job, is it? Bottom line, sometimes it's very, very overwhelming. It's hard to take those first steps. Now, I think, so we're really going to we're not going to talk about the whole decluttering process, but we're going to talk about the bits of it that we think are very, very powerful, I think. And so we sat chatting about this before, and, Ingrid and I kind of finish each other's sentences, to be fair. So we kind of know what each other thinks, really. But I think we each picked out a few bits that we think are super important. And for me, I think one of the very first exciting bits about decluttering is that very first step in admitting that you want to do something about it, either to yourself or to other people. So in our world, that is a client picking up the phone and saying, I'm really embarrassed to do this, but it's got to a stage where I really need some help. Would you help me with this? And for us to be able to say, absolutely, you've come to the right place. We can totally help you. And you can hear the kind of, oh, like, this is so amazing that there's someone there that can help me. I don't have to do this journey on my own. And so that bit of it, or someone joining the Facebook group and then realizing that there's a whole load of other people out there who've got the exact same emotions and habits. Or it's about listening to this podcast and us telling you about our experience with other people. Or it's about becoming a member with us, where people are in a smaller community of people that are super supportive and going through the whole journey with other people. So whatever it is, I think that first step is like so powerful, isn't it, Ingrid?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's hard to admit that you need help with something. I think a lot of us are so conditioned. I'm figuring it out my own. I'm just gonna read a book, watch a YouTube video, go on whatever it is, and I'm gonna figure it all out. And just to actually realize, you know what? I really need some help with this. And then picking up the phone or typing that email or Googling or listening in and actually going, this is a problem. I am ready to tackle this.
Yeah, it's a big deal to make that mental leap, isn't it? In whatever shape or form that is, you know what I mean? And so you can't underestimate that very, very first step. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that once you kind of get into it, so you kind of, you know, what do you call it? Put your feet in the, what do you call it? Dip your toes in the water. I'm trying to think of what this phrase was then. I'm doing a bit of an Ingrid then with some can't even think what I'm saying, but anyway, so dip your toes in the water. And so you start to look at what decluttering and organizing means and what this journey is going to mean. And certainly if you're in our world of decluttering, then you're going to find out pretty quickly that it's not actually about the stuff. It's not actually about the extra bottle of shampoo that you've got or the skirt that you can't fit into. It's not about that. It's about tackling what's inside your mind. And it's tackling these deeply ingrained emotions that have been around sometimes for decades, or things that have happened in your life that have led you to the place where you are today. For some people, there's traumas, there's all kinds of horrible, nasty things that life throws in the way of us that take us off track from being what we once were, perhaps, which was a very proud homemaker that, you know, loved their home, supported their family, and enjoyed everything around the home. And then all of a sudden that's gone, and your home has taken a nosedive over the years, and you want to get that back. And you're like, how did that happen? You know, how many people, Ingrid, do we talk to who say, but I wasn't always this way? You know, if I go back years ago, I was always super proud of my house, and I don't know where it all went wrong. But the truth of the matter is, it does go wrong because life throws these things in our path, doesn't it?
Yes, and there's so many different reasons. I mean, a lot of people just, you know, can be very judgmental and go, oh, they're just so lazy. They're just not doing their house. But it's like the stories we hear, it is, oh, there's always been so much going on. It's never just the one thing. It's a snowball, very fitting for Christmas, hopefully, if you've got snow.
Well done.
It's kind of a snowball of events that have happened that have led to the current situation. And whether you have a little bit of clutter or a lot of clutter, you are here now and you're like, right, I want to do something about this. And I think that is such a positive mental change that people then make of, yes, I'm ready to tackle this head on, because I don't want to be like this. I don't want to live in a house like this. I don't want to be surrounded with clutter.
Yeah, and I think that, so understanding those emotions, and there are I wouldn't say hundreds, but there are probably, I don't know what the number would be, Ingrid. I was like suddenly decided I'm going to say a number of emotions, everybody. But let's just say several lots of 10, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, that kind of emotions. And some of these have got sub-emotions associated with them that cause us to have problems. And we've all got our own version of what that is. But, you know, just taking away the guilt that you feel if you spent a lot of money on something and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, that money's gone. Like, let's not worry about it. Don't worry about it anymore. It's gone. We can't bring that back. We can't change the past. And just allowing yourself to move on from these emotions is so very powerful. Knowing, getting the knowledge to realize that, you know, the kind of what ifs that we ask ourselves all the time, going through the process of understanding the repercussions of making a decision and sometimes making a mistake, and allowing yourself to make that mistake and realizing it wasn't actually a colossal mistake to make. all these things are part of that journey, part of that learning that you need to go on to get yourself to that end point of decluttering. Well, there isn't an end point, actually, as we say, it kind of goes on, but get you through that journey of mindset change to a point where you've kind of seen the light almost. What do you think, Ingrid?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also something that happens over time. Some people have very early on lots of light bulbs which guide them on the way, but it's also a gradual process. It's almost like the peeling of an onion to get to the heart of it. It's a layer after a layer. It's the big clutter first, then it's the smaller clutter, then it's the really nitty-gritty clutter that's been holding you back. And then the realization of, wow, and the money that's been spent on the items that are never being used, and all of that, those insights, I think for me are so interesting to see, and I think definitely one of my favorite parts of the decluttering journey.
Yeah, I know you talked then about the getting down to the nitty gritty of things, and so by that I'm assuming that you talk about things like sentimental items, and you talk about things like paperwork that are notoriously hard to get through those emotional barriers, aren't they? Really, if we're sentimental people, it's hard to work out one sentimental item for another and realize that some are better or more sentimental or more special than others, and realizing that you can let go of some of these things and still enjoy what's remaining is very powerful as well. The quality over quantity is huge, isn't it? Once you get that and you understand that, it's like, of course, why do I need to keep 50 of something when I can keep 5 and I can still evoke those really special memories? And so, but it takes some doing it. It's a process that needs to be learned, and it's a journey that needs to be gone on and enjoyed, isn't it? And super powerful, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's also what we see a lot in our membership, I find, is that decluttering muscle that really develops quicker than a lot of people actually realize at first. That's also so interesting to see. And the people who follow our roadmap in our membership and actually follow the steps that we say, okay, this is the order in which you're best to do your house, are like, wow, I'm feeling braver. I'm feeling more ready to now go to the next step. And the people who are further into our membership, they're tackling their rooms of dooms. They're tackling their craft rooms, which are notoriously hard to do. So you can really see that shift of, wow, I started indeed with easier areas and now I'm doing the harder areas, and I feel that I've built up my decluttering muscle enough to be able to do this. I could have never thought I would come as far as I have.
I think you're so right. I think one of the things that we think about decluttering before we start it is that it should be simple and that we should be able to just do it. We should be able to go and get a bin bag, take it into a room and get rid of things that we no longer need. It should be a simple process. And so why is it complex? And the truth of the matter is that it's not complex, is it really? But it needs to be done in a certain way, which tackles those emotional connections, those easier emotional connections first. And then you build up, as Ingrid says, that decluttering muscle along the way. And so I think the realization that perhaps the way you've been doing it in the past has not been the best way to achieve what you want to achieve. Of course, we've all made progress, and progress is fantastic, whatever that is. But there is a way that makes things easier for yourself and encourages that longevity, because what happens so often is that people give up because it becomes too hard, mostly because they've jumped into the hardest room earlier on in the process than perhaps they should have done. Yeah. And so I think the realization that actually decluttering and the decluttering process is something that needs to be learned is also super relevant, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so too. And what I think for me, if we're talking about kind of favorite parts, I really love it when you start to see almost like a twinkle back in their eye, a weight's being lifted from people's shoulders. You hear them like, oh, I feel so much better. There's so much less clutter around. My eyes just feel like there's not so many things to distract me all the time. I feel relieved. I feel like space is opening up, and not only in my house, but also in my head. And that's what I love. When you start to see that with our members and also with our clients, that is just such a fantastic thing to see. And it's like, yes, I mean, I'm like, yay, amazing, well done. Because that's what gives you then the motivation to do something else.
Hi, just a little break from this week's podcast episode to ask you a question. Are you feeling completely overwhelmed with your clutter? Have you tried to declutter hundreds of times but get stuck? Well, in our 45-minute free webinar, we will unlock the 3 ingredients you need for decluttering success. Are you ready to take back control? All the details you need are at declutterhub.com/3-ingredients. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Now, before the little break, Ingrid was talking about the fact that people feel so much lighter once they've gone through that decluttering process. And I wanted to sort of carry that idea on a little bit, which is something that's very special for me, is that when people are proud of what they have done and proud of what they've achieved, because for many people, decluttering has been something that hasn't happened in the past, that they've never quite mastered. It's almost like not running a marathon, because that's, well, it kind of is a little bit like running a marathon. But when you start off and people do like couch to 5K, don't they? Running is like, I really wanted to run and I've done this. And the pride that people feel when they master something, it's priceless, Ingrid, and people are so proud of what they've done. Look at what I've done. Proud to show the families, proud to show the kids, proud to show us, proud to show the decluttering communities that they're in. And there's something very, very special about people feeling, I did that and I'm amazing because I did that. And I love that feeling of somebody going from, and you can see it, as you see, you can see the weight being lifted. Equally, you can see the pride coming when people are so happy with what they've done.
Yeah. You know what, where I see that a lot is when we've got our own internal forum in our membership, and people share their before photos, their progress photos, their after photos. And you can see it doesn't have to be a whole room. It can even be, look at this cupboard, look at this drawer, look at what I've done. Wow, I can put everything away now in my kitchen cupboards. Or I actually didn't realize how much stuff I had, and now I've got it all lined up and I'm going to, use it all up. And you feel the pride is just oozing through the photos. And I love that. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken a lot about decluttering and the decluttering process and actually getting to that stage. I think one of the next things for me that comes, it kind of is alongside, but maybe you really nail it after you've done a big decluttering project, which is the understanding the importance of keeping on top of things, the importance of maintenance, the importance of daily and weekly resets. And then once people start to understand what a reset is, start to have that in their lives, again, very proud of the resets that they're doing and realizing, wow, what used to take me hours and I would never do actually is only 5 minutes. And so the realization that once everything has a place, you can put it back so easily. And those resets are absolutely fantastic for that, aren't they? And so people love a reset. And so just that part of the process, if there's one thing I would say that people love more than anything else, it's daily resets, isn't it? Like, yeah. Wow, I'm doing my resets. We had a message from an old member who was with us for a year just this morning, didn't we? Who said, still doing my daily resets, still spend an hour a week on my resets, and I'm absolutely nailing it. So she came into our membership for a year, did the process, and now it must be 2 years or so since she left, and she still emails us saying, still doing it, still on it, still got my house completely under control, so happy. And it's lovely to hear back from old members who've got that completely nailed, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also, we see it a lot in our accountability threads that we do. We set monthly goals, and we get feedback from our members saying, one of my monthly goals was to be better at daily resets. And then you get a couple of weeks later, still doing it, still keeping it up. And then the month later, I don't even think about it anymore. It's now so much part of my habit, of my routine, that I don't even. So you've got those massive wins, but now it is actually, it's in the strategy, it's in the plan for that day, and you do it without thinking about it. And then a habit really has been cemented in the whole process. And I think that is just amazing to see.
I know, we're talking about a journey. It sounds kind of cliche, doesn't it? Talking about journeys all the time, on the journey that you've gone on, but it is completely what you do go on. And I think that once you have done the decluttering projects, once you have nailed your daily resets, your weekly resets, and you've got all that sorted, I think there's a huge shift in people's mindset. That's when all of a sudden people are like, well, I've done that, and decluttering is now part of my life. So it doesn't have to be this huge mammoth undertaking once a year to get things under control again. I'm just ticking away at it all the time. And then once that happens, people feel that weight has been lifted and feel ready to move on to other things in their life, don't they, Ingrid? And that form, it comes in very many different guises.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I always love is when I start to hear our members say, I'm going to do a no spend month, or I'm going to do a no spend challenge, or I have my paperwork under control and I've actually called my insurance company and I've just saved £400 on my insurance for whatever insurance it is. And that just brings me so much happiness, because that is all money that was being just frittered away and being spent. And I love that. I love those wins. Those make me very happy.
I know, yeah, it is. It is about that moving on to the next stage, isn't it? And I think, for some people that might be, of course, a lot of people, it's definitely shopping. So the shopping habits definitely change. Now, people are definitely looking at shopping in a completely different way because you've worked so hard to get that stuff out of your house. And people are like, I don't want to start bringing random stuff back in. I absolutely want to change my habits. I don't need that stuff in my life. That perhaps I was definitely going through retail therapy and stuff before. And so I definitely don't need that. I am not bringing that in. So I think shopping habits change. I think we find a lot of people move on to creative things as well. So something that's laying a little bit dormant, maybe somebody wanted to craft, wanted to paint, all of those things, wanted to cook. People start to go back into their hobbies that they had before that have lain dormant for a while. I think that people quite often will start to go on weight loss programs as well, if they've, because it kind of all gets wrapped up. If you feel as if you're in a little bit of a slump, all of these things are sometimes very, very interwoven. And so people just feel ready to take on another challenge. But sometimes people find that hard to take that challenge on, because you've got a decluttering challenge and you've got a weight loss challenge and you've got a creative challenge and you've got all of these things. You can't do everything all at once. You kind of almost need to focus on one thing at a time, get that right, and then move on to the next one. And so it's always really nice, isn't it, Ingrid, to see decluttering not being a big mammoth task anymore, being very much part of people's lives, and people just wanted to chip away at it and then moving on to the next thing. So important.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think we really saw that as well when we did our Eat from Your Pantry challenge with our members. I mean, super, super successful member challenge. And everybody, started digging out the stuff from their pantries. They started to think about what things they were going to look for to buy that week for their fridge. But on the back of that, people started to do some maintenance and cleaning on their fridge and freezer. They started to create meals that they've never made before from leftovers. There was less food waste. There was meal planning going on. And it all kind of came together. And it was just tremendous to see. And that gave me just such a sense of happiness for our members as well. Like, they're not only not wasting food, they're saving money, they're eating stuff that they have, they're thinning out all of the stuff that's clogging up their pantries, they're donating food that they have far too much from. It was just win, 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 win all together. It was just amazing.
It was. The interesting thing, Ingrid, is we said we wanted to talk about why we're still excited by this. And I think we can tell we're like excited little Duracell bunnies, aren't we, basically, about getting excited. And that never stops. We're always excited like this because of the changes. Honestly, it can be, not for everybody, but decluttering and organising can be completely life-changing for people. And we see that so often. And that's why I feel so passionate about it.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing that I wanted to talk about, really, Ingrid, just to close off this podcast, which has been, we could literally carry on for like 3 hours, but we need to stop, don't we? Because people have got Christmas to look forward to and things to do. But we wanted to talk about all of the things that excite us. Nothing is about the stuff. Nothing. It's all about the emotions. It's all about the mindset. It's all about the journey. It's not about, do you know what was fantastic about the decluttering process? The fact that I got 10 bin bags out of my house. That's not something that excites us. It's a byproduct. For me, it's always a byproduct of the decluttering journey. The real progress is in the journey, in the mindset changes and so on. And it's not about the stuff. Of course, we need to get rid of our stuff to facilitate that. But that's just a thing that happens as a result of all these amazing things going on in people's minds, isn't it?
Yeah. Everybody thinks it's about the stuff, but we know it's always about the emotions and habits. So Yes, we love it. I think we can conclude, Leslie. I feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside now, as always. And I'm like, yeah, let's continue in 2022. We're talking about decluttering and organizing. We have not finished speaking yet. It still makes us incredibly happy. And it's just lovely. It's just lovely. So, Leslie, what is next week's podcast?
Next week, I am going to be talking to one of our members, Liz, about her decluttering journey, and it's really interesting. There's a couple of motivational quotes that really resonated with Liz and set her off on her decluttering journey pathway. So do listen in. So that's a Christmas Eve podcast. Can you believe that? We've got Christmas Eve and a New Year's Eve podcast coming out. How nice is that? I'm sure that everyone will be listening in on Christmas Eve. It will be there once Christmas is over as well. So, yes. But do tune in if you want your normal Declutter Hub podcast fix.
So thank you so much for listening to this week's podcasts. And all that's left for me to say is, because indeed it is Liz and Leslie next week on the podcast, I wish everyone a lovely time over the holidays. We hope you enjoy celebrating however you choose to celebrate. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.